G'day YouTube. It's a bit of a blustery, windy sort of a day, but more or less sunny enough. Yeah, that looks all right. There we go, just a flash with no beam. Already cancelled the trip meter. 103.2 on the odometer. Switch that off so that we get a brand new start for the average speed. And I figure we're going to go out there, kind of sort of thing, in the general direction of Ranges Valley Dam. Just for the fun of it, put a few clicks on the push bike because I spent so much money on the entire push bike fantasy. Might as well get some use out of it while I'm feeling fit and healthy, kind of thing. Okay. Once more we have to run the gauntlet of the sheep. Almost cold enough that I wish I'd brought gloves. I did think of it and I probably kind of sort of meant to. We had 20 odd mils of rain last week, so this all got kind of boggy and soggy again. Which makes the driveway a ever challenging thing. I was saying this morning in the comments thread to one of my long-time co-subscribers who's been fairly inactive on YouTube for a while, I said, you thought you didn't like the Barilda driveway last time you saw me driving over it. Check it out now after a couple of La Ninas. It's an amazing thing now. Extremely, very highly dilapidated. But I gotta say, this Discovery e-bike handles even the Barilda driveway. And at some point, there is a plan involving my neighbour fixing the driveway, because he has lots and lots and lots of traffic on it that's all commercial in nature. He has trucks coming to collect cattle and sheep. He has shearers and all sorts of people, without whom it's not really possible to run a sheep farm. So, very, very nice to be back home after the trip to Coffs Harbour. I've got to say that's the first time I've been to Coffs Harbour for about 25 years. Couldn't believe how much it had changed. It's like Parramatta city traffic strung out all over the coastal strip. Where they used to grow bananas, there's now houses perched on 45 and 50 degree slopes. Bloody glad I don't live down there. I did used to see Coffs Harbour about 2 or 3 times a year as a kid. So I have the same time-lapse view of Coffs Harbour falling to pieces under the impact of population pressure that I have for a place called Red Rock. Tiny little hamlet on the banks of the Red Bank Creek, where my father went to recover from getting his chest squashed in 1943. Kept going back there and renting houses to have holidays with his first family. And in 1948 he bought a fisherman's house there. The theory had been they were going to have 12 soldier settlers, returned Second World War vets, and each of them got a little simple unlined fibro house because nobody knew that fibro cement was cancerous. And they were supposed to use 12 rowboats with 12 fish nets, and in the water at Red Rock, which back in those days used to be a whole lot deeper and had a whole lot more fish in it, they were supposed to operate as commercial fishermen. Whereas up around here, your soldier settlers were given 500 acres of sheep country. Doesn't look like we're going downhill, but we're doing 31 k's on 10% power, and I'm barely able to keep up pedalling with the bike. So the map is correct, we're going downhill. So anyway, about the time my old man bought his place at Red Rock, a cyclone knocked out a sand dune 2.5 miles north of Red Rock. Meant Station Creek no longer tracked behind the dunes and emptied into the blue pool or blue hole at the mouth of the Red Bank Creek. There was no longer enough water flowing in and out to stop sand from building up. And from 1948 onwards, the whole Red Bank Creek estuary has been filling up with sand. So the 12 fishermen soon went out of business. And until about 1975, very few people knew about the place. And then some moron wrote a newspaper article in a Sydney paper talking about the best 10 places in New South Wales to get away from it all. And Red Rock was, if it wasn't top of the list, it was number 2 or 3. And what was previously ridiculously high population pressure in holiday times just expanded exponentially. less water in the river, less fish in the water, more people. So I didn't get to go to Red Rock on the way to or from Coffs Harbour, but I did get to catch up with an old holiday friend, another bloke whose parents had a house at Red Rock like I did, and like myself, he was at boarding school. Only he was at Hurlston Ag. And I think in one of his brother's classes there was my third cousin. So, back in the day, we used to call him Crud and they used to call me Hog, short for Warthog. So we hadn't seen each other for about 20-25 years. That was a good reunion. Bloody mobile phones means nobody's got a landline anymore, so we all lost each other's phone numbers. I'm sort of tempted to take this push bike down to Coffs Harbour for the first part of the bloody treatment, because the thing is, radiation poisoning is an accumulative thing. You get cooked for 20 minutes a day, 5 days a week, and even at the end of the first or second week, you're not going to be too bad. You keep this up 5 days a week for 7 bloody weeks. By the end of it, life's going to be pretty grim. Apparently I get to shave me friggin' beard off before we start. So that means I'm going to start out looking like me father. And as it progresses, with cytotoxics up the IV every Monday, then my hair falls out and I've got no bloody idea what I'll look like because I've never seen a bald Wharton yet. So life's about to get highly interesting, but not much fun, I don't think. So apart from the fact that I won't be able to carry on with my brush cutting regime, so by spring we'll be living in a fucking bushfire fuel bomb. Kinda, sorta, but you know, if I got to be away for 2 or 3 months, winter is the time to be away because that's when the grass grows the slowest. And maybe we'll get another La Nina. So maybe I won't have to come back and fight fires. But my daughter's planning on coming and staying with me in the subsidised accommodation at the hospital where they stash you while you're on such treatment regimes. Sort of too crook to travel, but not crook enough to need to be in the ward. So poor old bulb powder's offered to forego working for probably a month, and we'll leave the yurt and the hut pretty much to the kangaroos unless we can find a yurt sitter or a hut sitter. And a character you've yet to meet called Skitty Kitty, a 17-year-old one-eyed pussycat, he'll probably have to go into a cat hostel, because you really can't leave a cat on its own for a month in a yurt. So the logistics of this bloody episode are really quite complicated. But one of the few funny sides to it is that all of bloody NATO is wondering if and when they're going to get nuked by Mr. Lilliputian, and whether he's going to be using chemical weapons on them as well. Well, I've got a bloody schedule of how much fucking radiation they're going to hit me with, and how long for, and what days the chemical poison kicks in. So it'll be interesting to see by Christmas who's had to put up with more fallout than whom. .28 kilometres an hour, top gear 27. Now getting to use 60% power, thank you Mr. Computer. Fought a bushfire out here once. Matthew was about 15. He was old enough to go out on the truck on training exercises, but not on the live fire ground. We were on a training exercise pretending to respond to an aeroplane crash at the Glen Innes airport. And some bloody lunatic had fantasised that the Dundee Brigade could respond to the shed, get in the truck and drive from Dundee to the airport and be there 30 minutes after the aeroplane crashed, which is completely beyond possibility. But that was the exercise. 45, eh? That's the fastest this thing's been so far. So anyway, we had to go to town in the truck, meet up at the bloody fire brigade headquarters, where we got the most bullshit briefing I've ever had by a bloke who said that we had to make him look good and that all the other emergency services had the knife out for the RFS. And if any of us did anything we weren't told to do, then we were going to be in a taxi going back to town and we'd be drummed out of the service by Monday. He really was an obnoxious prick, that bloke. And then we had to go out and sit at the airport and wait and wait. And while we were waiting, a big column of smoke come up on that farm. And there was a bit of lollygagging and people said, oh, looks like you're on fire, Chris, at your place. I pulled out a prismatic compass, took a bearing on it, and I said, no, that's more like Jack Alt's place than mine. And then we got called. And on that day, it was the hippies crew. The bloke who rode his push bike from Deepwater to Glen Innes to go to work every day, me and my kid. Another fella who was a independent building contractor with a ponytail. We looked at each other and decided that if we didn't tell them that we had a 15-year-old junior member on board who was allowed to go to training exercises but not to a real fire, they probably wouldn't notice, so off we went. And at the end of the day, we got the fire out, had a good little time, turned up at RFS headquarters to watch the State Commissioner for the RFS present long service medals to a few people, including the bloke whose place we were fighting the fire on. And he wanted to get up close to the fellas who had soot on their faces, ash on their overalls. We're trying to keep him away from the 15-year-old. The only way I could think of to distract him was to go up and complain to him that when I wrote to him, I sent him the original letter straight off my typewriter and I kept the photocopy. But I said, when you write back to me, Mr. Coperberg, I get the black and white photocopy and your records keeps the colour printed version. Oh no, he said, that wouldn't be happening. I said, but it is. He reached into me protective personal equipment top pocket overalls, pulled out this big fat folded up collection of letters backwards and forwards from me to him and him to me. And that gave me son time to get the hell out of there. But apparently he was noticed, to the point where 2 years later, when he was 17 and he had his licence and he was legitimately at a Section 44 fire, Mr. Coperberg spotted him again and recognised him, and then sent a delegate to our next annual general meeting and suggested that he be nominated for deputy captain. And that's how he come to be the youngest deputy captain in the state, when he was still on his red peas. From fighting the fire on Jack Alt's place and getting away with it. My father used to fix Jack Alt's father's tractor once upon a time. Good fun being an old local. You sort of feel like you fit in, which causes you to wonder what it must be like for a proper Aborigine. Like I've only been in Australia since 1879 on my father's side and 1850 on my mother's side. Imagine 40,000 frickin' years in the same place. Your DNA would resonate with the landscape. The idea of selling up and moving for the sake of financial convenience would never bloody occur to anyone. back in the day when humans fitted into the landscape and we weren't destroying the bloody environment. Oh, 10.3 kilometres. That's as much as half the distance to where my daughter was living on Crotty Road before she committed to the yurt project. "32 k's going down the hill, no need to pedal." Save that for coming back up this bloody hill. I don't know whether the causeway is going to be navigable or not. Not for me. I'm not riding an electric push bike on that. That would do the electronicals no bloody good at all whatsoever. So I won't do it. I'll take you down and show it to you, but I'm not going to ride it. Yeah, not for this little black duck. But 11.8 kilometres, we've been there, we've seen there. And I'm assuming the colour balance will probably be better now that we've got the sun over my shoulder rather than onto my face. Pity about the wind. But yeah, that's 23 k's in 7th gear, 22 in 6. 20 in 5. Oh, what? And now, on the far horizon, there's a bit of a clearing that points up to the very top of the hill. That's my driveway. At least I think it is. There you go, just disappearing behind that tree in the paddock, re-emerging now to go down below the tree horizon again. Dear oh dear, this bike needs a couple of more bloody gears on it. It's all you can do to keep up with 28 k's pedalling. It's nicer in the sun, I'll give it that. Bugger, somebody hit a bloody yellowtail black, sorry, a sulphur-crested cockatoo, a white cockatoo. Probably not a great omen to see one of them dead on the side of the road. Well, we've now travelled the distance equivalent to my place to town. Yeah, in that paddock on the right is where Matthew had his first live fire hose up against an actual fire in reality with a fire truck when he was 15. It didn't do him any harm. Okay, we're now down to 1 bar of the battery. Oh, that was rough. Okay, we're back up to 2 bars. So it like rolling down that hill. And it likes being at 20% power, thanks to the computer. Back to 1 bar. Back to 2 bars. Mind you, rolling downhill using no power. Tell you what, it's bloody cold on the hands and it's bloody cold on the eyeballs, even with sunglasses. I might have to break out a pair of Mark 8 flying goggles. To do this shit in winter. Although quite honestly it might be bloody spring before I'm ready to do it again, once I go away. Pain in the arse being sick. Probably one of the reasons I didn't push harder at the doctors back in about November, because I didn't have time to be sick. And now I'm pretty much going to have time to do nothing but be sick for a while anyway. These click to position gears are a bloody good thing. Wow, back up to 2 bars. .3 kilometres at this point. That's far enough to go from my hut to my daughter's old house back to my mother's place. Which she built on her boyfriend's land, and he then willed the land to my son. So Bardwell is now his place, which is why I feel it's only fair to do everything I can to help Elizabeth to graduate from a yurt to the flat pack kit home that she's buying happily for the price she locked in when she paid the deposit. Because building prices have just about doubled since then. Well, I wonder if we'll get up the Barilda driveway on that same battery. I'm very impressed. I don't know whether I'm impressed by the battery capacity or by the improvement in my capacity to pedal, which has led to the apparent improvement in battery capacity. Because I've been pedaling most of the time for 22.3 kilometres. The Dotard child approacheth. As Daddy scareth the sheep. "23 k's, 1 bar of battery going up the hill." Hello, darling.
Hey Dad, how you going?
Yeah, pretty good. I won't stop and talk because it'll totally bugger up my average time.
Alright, enjoy.
See you when you get back.
Alright, bye.
Drive safe. And she hates being on YouTube. So I kept the camera off her as much as possible. Because there's no point in annoying one's children. Whether they're little or whether they're grown up, there's no point in annoying them. Not if you want them to have fond memories. And that's just turbo mode coming up there. I'm not pedalling. I'm doing the tired old man routine. But we're in that 15 to 25k power band where the back wheel's turning over fast enough that it can actually use all of its power. Well, now it's getting help from the sitting down running machine side. It really does handle shitty roads well, doesn't it? And the boggy patch on the bottom of the paddock end. There we go. 126.7, 57 minutes, 45, 24.9 kilometres an hour. Average speed. I thought so. I thought I was going to be able to do that. Average 25 k's. Okay, I will spare you the misery. 12:51. So 11:50. Yeah, okay. So it took 59 minutes for that whole excursion. Why have I got a bloody headlight on? Always happens when I'm reaching for the information button. Anyway, I will push this thing up the hill without you having to watch me huff and puff. I will be back. Yeah, got enough grunt to get up the driveway. After 23.8 kilometres. 127 k's for the odometer. Cool, okay. Cool. That's it. Right. Done. I'll fill out some paperwork now. $6,600 for the Bicycle Fantasy divided by 127 kilometres to date. We're down to $51.96 per each kilometre for the electric bicycle project. Solar powered electric charge bicycle. So the very first kilometre cost me $6,600. And the most recent kilometre coming up the driveway only cost me $52. That's how to get the cost of decarbonised electric transportation down is use it more often. Make better use of the infrastructure. Thus much is self-evidentiary, is it not? Warbles on a lot to YouTube. I did tell you a couple of days ago that there would be more rides on the e-bike. There you go. As it were foretold within the prophecy. And I hope to replace that thing with this thing in the fullness of the time. But I got to tell you, my ischial tuberosities are pretty bloody sore after nearly 24 k's. Ischial tuberosities being polite talk in Latin medico-legal type for the bones of my arse. Warbles on a lot to YouTube. Ciao.